Should we all receive a government handout every month, regardless of whether we work or not? Swiss voters have just rejected the idea of a basic income for everyone, but other countries are piloting the idea. So what would the economic and social impact be if other countries say yes? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Martine Dennis. Now, it's the first country in the world to hold a referendum on whether to give out state handouts to all its citizens. But voters in Switzerland have voted no by an overwhelming majority. Supporters argued that many are jobless because they're increasingly becoming redundant by the technological takeover in the workplace. Critics say government leaders haven't properly explained how taxpayers would fund the costly policy. And as for the politicians, well, no parliamentary party has come out in favour. So let's listen to what a couple of voters in the Swiss capital, Bern, had to say.
I think people will go on working because it's a human need to be useful, to do meaningful actions. So, in fact, I have the impression that people will even be more productive if they are productive on themselves instead of being obliged to be productive.
The risk for desolidarity within the society is too large. I find that it's really a real danger that once that people just get their basic needs covered, the society doesn't feel responsible anymore to look after the ones who can't really handle the situations on their own.
All right, let's have a look at the situation around the rest of Europe. Recent research found that 68% of people across all 28 EU member states would vote for an unconditional basic income. Italians and Spaniards like the idea most. With high unemployment and increasing concern, 4 out of 5 Finns are in favour of a basic income. Finland will roll out a pilot scheme next year. The Netherlands also has a pilot project in the pipeline. Other European cities with generous welfare systems seem keen to try. The biggest objection to the idea is the fear that people would be encouraged to stop working. But the poll found that only 4% would quit their jobs. All right, let's introduce our guests now. Joining us from Basel, we have Enno Schmidt, the co-initiator of the Basic Income Switzerland campaign. From London, we have Nick Pearce, director of the Institute for Public Policy Research at the University of Bath. And in Brussels, Francine Mestrom. She's the coordinator for Global Social Justice. Thank you to you all. But Enno, can I start with you? You weren't expecting the Swiss people to vote yes. They voted resoundingly no. So what exactly did your campaign achieve?
Our campaign achieved that this is a topic now worldwide, and it grows up to a new idea of Europe. And in Switzerland, imagine what this idea is. It touches so much life spheres, the question of work, at least the question of what's the difference between human being and robots. And so you have to think about so many things, and we changed so much fixed opinions that a result of a bit more than 20% what we expect in the moment is a big success. And you know, by direct democracy, it's not just only to have a majority and a decision, but it's a process, an education process. It's a process of debating in the society. And there will be a next referendum in a couple of years, and Switzerland now will start with pilot projects. So the opinion in the population is that the people say now the basic income, unconditional basic income, is on the table, and every single party say that.
And Nick, in London, Enno's right, isn't he? I mean, what was the dream of radical thinkers some time ago has now seeped into the political mainstream. It is on the table, isn't it?
Yes, this is an old idea that's been knocking around for a long time, but it's come back into public favour, or at least political prominence in recent years. I think that's because welfare states have become less generous as a consequence of austerity. Young people in particular across southern Europe and elsewhere have suffered high levels of unemployment. And I think there's a sense that the labour market is changing. The growth of automation is making people think that something different is needed. Now, that concern may well be overstated. It's less likely, I think, that robots will take over than many people fear. But nonetheless, these are the reasons that are making people look at this proposal afresh.
And Francine, in Brussels, you and your organisation, despite being a progressive liberal organisation, you're against the basic income as a concept. Can you explain why?
Yes, indeed. Well, let me first of all say that there is a lot of confusion about the meaning of basic income. And I want to state very, very clearly that I think that all poor people do need an income and do need decent allowances. So it is not about refusing that poor people would get any money. They need money because poverty is an income deficit. But I do not think that in order to solve the poverty problem, you have to give money to the rich people. And the problem with basic income, basically, fundamentally, is that it is an individual solution. It is a solution that only looks at the individual, whereas our welfare states, however bad they are functioning at this moment, are based on a horizontal solidarity, and that is what we have to defend. And when I hear someone say that we need something different, I would say no, we need something better than what we have today. And I think we should now use this period, as was said also, to improve the debate, to stress the point that this is a process. And we have to combine the best elements of basic income with the best elements of welfare states, because I think we do need solidarity, we do need strong societies, and this is what we have to do now.
OK. Enno, your referendum proposal advocated for a universal basic income. Francine has pointed out that perhaps this is a very good idea for the poor to lift people out of poverty. But Switzerland has one of the highest standards of living in the world. It's one of the richest countries in the world. So perhaps you're in the wrong country.
No, it's exactly the right country, no? It's not against poverty. It's not only the rich or the poor or the single mothers. This is exactly a new idea, you know? The old concepts of social justice lead us to what we have. Don't forget that. These concepts are 100 years old. I agree with this idea to combine the best elements of an unconditional basic income for everyone. Of course, we are one society. It's enough by this class struggling. It leads to that the rich becomes richer and the poor poorer. We have to find new ideas, and ideas that don't depart some people out of society. So Switzerland is the best country, the right country, because of 3 points. The first is we have direct democracy, you know, and an unconditional basic income strengthens civil society and the citizens. And it needs that an unconditional basic income comes through the people and not determined by technique. It's not the discussion about robots. It's a discussion about more humanity, more self-responsibility and freedom, and combine it with the best elements from the past of the social security or social benefits, social justice. It's not over with this idea, and it's not a neoliberal idea. It's not to abolish the social benefits, but it is to come more close to one society and to make the people free, to not decide about their life, not with pressure, not with compulsion, but give the people the trust, and not at least, as I said, direct democracy, or let's say more of democracy and less of paternalistic decision about others.
And Nick, it seems as though basic income, universal or otherwise, means different things to different people. What is it supposed to do?
Well, I think for some of its proponents, it sets a minimum standard of living that is guaranteed by an income, so that everybody is free from need and want. And in its most sort of libertarian versions, you would be free to refuse any other kinds of work. You could live off the basic income. Now, most people that advocate for a universal basic income recognise that that's too big, too expensive, unlikely to be supported because it would require billions of pounds of transfers and very high rates of tax to offset the costs. So you tend to get solutions which are smaller scale, which leave in place existing benefits, like benefits for children or benefits for housing, which help with housing costs. And instead you get a lower level of basic income proposed. And that's what we see for example, in the UK at the present time. Now, the benefit of that, of course, of going smaller scale is it's less costly, and you can deal with one of the main problems that its advocates are motivated by, which is that there are people who are socially excluded, who fall through the nets, who find themselves denied support by the state or subject to what we call conditionality in their benefit claims, that they are refused benefit because they don't seek work, for example, or don't seek work sufficiently hard. And so for them, a smaller level of basic income, which nonetheless means that you at least have something to fall back on, is a preferred solution. And I think that's politically pragmatic. It's very, very unlikely we're going to get a high level basic income sufficient to lift people out of any requirement to work at all. The more plausible scenario is we get some kinds of incremental measures where a small amount is paid to more people.
And Enno, so your proposal coming from wealthy Switzerland sounds pretty utopian. It sounds idealistic.
Yes, it is idealistic, and think about where we should be if there were not been idealistic in the past. And an utopian is that we can talk with each other from different cities. It wasn't utopian. So believe me, utopians are the ideas becoming reality in the future. And it's not the wrong country, Switzerland. It's really, I say it again, the right country, because this is an idea. It's not founded by the old conception of unemployed, employed, or rich and poor. It is to give more space, a floor of unconditional living, to give more trust to each other. And you know, the main point is unconditional. Unconditional is the point. And it's not about so much more money. It's not about more money. So because if the existence is secured by an unconditional basic income, of course, then all other wages and social benefit security payments will decrease around about this amount, because now that is the basic income in an unconditional way. And that is that in the prices will fall because of lower production costs. There is a space available for a tax or levy for this unconditional basic income. We are in old conception also by taxing, also by our understanding who makes the state running, and also by the understanding that the state has money, the state has no money, no state has to have money, it's the money from the people. So at least for me, it is much more a new delightment, a new rethinking, a new testing out, looking where we are. And this word unconditional is the most important of that. We just change the basic income level in an unconditional payment.
Francine, I see you shaking your head in Brussels. You seem to agree to a point that basic income is necessary, certainly for those living in poverty, but you seem to have a problem with the universal or the unconditional element of what Enno is suggesting.
Well, I'm very sorry, but unconditionality does not exist. All our societies, everywhere in the world, all the time, all our societies are based on reciprocity. We should be, and we are, and we show solidarity towards each other. And it is, and that was the basic principle of our welfare states. It is receiving according to your needs and paying according to your means. And that is what we should continue to defend. Whereas the basic income gives an equal allowance to all, irrespective of what people have. Now, that may be a good idea from the viewpoint of social justice, but it is not a good idea in general, because if you want to promote more equality in our societies, then you have to treat people unequally in order to bring them together, in order to make an approachment between people. So unconditionality does not exist because all societies are based on reciprocity, and two, we have to promote equality, more equality, and that's why our economic and social rights are so very important.
All right, OK. Nick in London. So Francine seems to be much more concerned about income inequality, but at this juncture, with the referendum campaign that we've seen in Switzerland, the issue of automation, of digitisation, of a changing work landscape, I mean, this is something that has to be planned for.
Well, we can see all around us that technology is changing the world we live in, but it's not clear to me that it's going to, robots and automation are going to completely transform the labour market and render lots of people without work. I mean, there was a study just the other week by the OECD which looked again at the kinds of roles that might be replaced by robots or automated processes, and found that instead of sort of 50% of jobs being made redundant by technology, something like more like 9% would be, because of the tasks that people perform. They complement often technology rather than being completely transformed and replaced by them. And sitting here in London, we have a very high employment rate but low productivity. We need more robots, not less. We need more investment in technologies to make our work more productive. And we're a long way off, in countries like the UK at least, from a society in which people can't find work because of automation. So I think that's, although one can certainly understand the reason why people think this is changing our labour market and rendering something like a basic income necessary, it's not clear to me that, in 10 years' time, we'll be in a situation where automation would have made labour redundant to the point that we need some other way of finding the means to subsistence for people.
And Francine, how do you view the increasingly automated nature of society and indeed the workplace? How does that fit in to what you and your organisation would like to see?
Yes. Well, I think it is indeed a very positive evolution. It is a very positive development. And what it means is, in the first place, what we see happening today is not that labour is disappearing. Waged labour is disappearing. And that is why we have to help precarious people today with good rights, with good welfare systems. That is the first thing. And the second thing is that if there is less labour in society in the future, then, oh God, finally we can have a drastic reduction of working time. And that is what social progress means. And that is what we have to promote.
And Enno, in your campaign...
What we should not do is just give them some money and say, thank you very much, we do not need you anymore. That would be a very negative solution.
OK, Enno, in your campaign, the proposal that Swiss people voted on was the possibility of a 2,500 Swiss franc income, basic income, per month. How much would that buy? Do you think you might have miscalculated in terms of your proposal by suggesting far too little? Because, of course, as we know, that's not going to buy you very much in Switzerland, is it?
Yes, of course. That's just a number, just an example we called, and then it comes in the media, and now it is this number. That's only a suggestion to count. It is not part of this vote, any number, any high of an unconditional basic income, and also not any method of how to finance it. 2,500 francs in Switzerland is, very low for an adult to live from. And I think it must be then at the end something around 3,000 francs, but that's far away.
All right, OK, so that was a notional sum. But what about the criticism then that having this kind of universal basic income in Switzerland would make it a magnet for immigration, that you would be swamped quite literally by people seeking to come into your tiny mountainous kingdom? That was another criticism.
Yeah, of course, but that's not to look exactly and precisely what is real. Real is you can't get an unconditional basic amount if you are not legal in Switzerland with a resident permit. And so it's not you come to Switzerland and get an unconditional basic income. Today there are rules, there are things you have to do, you have to be employed, you have to have an apartment and all this stuff, and that will remain. So it is not so easy to come to here. And with an unconditional basic income payment, it's much more, I think, that you have something in your hand to steer immigrations and migrations. And it's not that people can come to Switzerland getting an unconditional basic income. But if you're allowed, I would like to say one word more about unconditional and equality.
OK, please do.
Yeah, unconditional, that we can see is unconditional. Our eyes are unconditional. The sun shining is unconditional. So be a bit grateful. The most things are unconditional, given to us as a gift. And also more than half of the done work is unconditional. All the work mostly done by women. Don't forget that it's an ideology to talk always about paid work when you say the word work. And it's really it's a curious view, I think, to say if you give the people money, then you say you are not need. So we are not in the century of slavery where people abide and where people need incentives, but not incentives, but compulsion to do anything. So that's doing computers. And I really think we need new conception and not the old one, and not always to say, make it better, make it better. We heard that the last 50 years. And for me, it's equality when everybody has this amount unconditional in the society, and not just this equality by numbers, by any stuff, what is, I don't know, but to say we are one society. Of course, also the rich.
Okay, no, it's a very good point that I'd like to put to Francine, because Enno has suggested that a vast amount of work, of course, is unpaid. It's done largely, of course, by us, by women, isn't it, Francine? And that with the basic income, that a monetary value would be attached to that. That's surely something you've got to agree with.
Well, it would give economic autonomy to women, which is a very positive thing. But the risk is, and it is a very serious risk, that you will also marginalize women from the labour market, especially the lower classes. And I think that is not a positive development. That would be very, very negative. Because if a labour market is well organized, is well regulated, if you give people social and economic rights, the labour market can be very emancipatory and empowering. And I think that is more important than giving only economic autonomy to women and then confine them to the home.
All right, Nick, I think what we're understanding is that the current system is creaky and clunky and needs an overhaul, if not completely new, radical thinking.
Yes, I mean, I think, places like the UK, you definitely see, people who are revolting against kind of these sanctions that are imposed on welfare claimants, who are, finding the labour market isn't delivering for them. But I think, in this debate, you have got the kind of two alternatives here, philosophical, if you like, alternatives. One is to say, let's have better wages, let's have better employment rights and things like universal childcare services, and let's embody our belonging in society in institutions and services that we share and in which we live a common life. And on the other hand, people saying, no, that isn't an answer. Let's have a payment made to each individual by the state based on the sharing out of a society's collective wealth. And those are just two very different kinds of approaches. From where we sit now, it seems to me that, as I said earlier, I think it's more likely you'll get kind of incremental change, perhaps in the direction of a small basic income in some areas. So, for example, in the UK, we're moving now to a single flat tier pension for everybody, which there would be a qualifying period for, but basically you've got a kind of basic income for pensioners. It might be that other elements of support for people can be simpler, can be brought together and have less strings attached. But that's quite a long way short of the sort of basic income that the proponents of the idea are proposing in places like Switzerland and elsewhere. So there are real differences here. There are some philosophical differences that need airing and debating.
All right. And Enno, can I give the last word to you in Basel? Perhaps you can claim success then, because you have ignited the debate, which, from what you're saying, you expect fully to continue to a positive end result, even if it takes years.
Yes, of course, we do. It's going on, so now it's much more stronger in the public, in the discussion. And it is about a free market. With this amount, you can say no to a bad job. It is more market. It is more to rethink, is it emancipation when women are also has to do things that men do? Is it better to open up the space, to give the responsibility to the people? And that's, I think, is a vision in it. And that's a power in it. And don't forget, this has a power. This idea is really strong. And all the other things we are discussed are
all right.
They are existing.
I have to stop it there, but thank you very much, all of you, for a very interesting conversation. Thank you, Enno Schmidt, Nick Pearce and Francine Mestrom. Thank you all. And as ever, thank you for watching as well. Remember, you can see the programme again anytime you like by going to the website aljazeera.com. If you want more discussion on this particular issue, you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And there's the Twitter sphere. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Martine Dennis, and the whole team here in Doha, it's bye for now.